Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel where we learn all about parenting our teenagers and young adults and helping them to become resilient, hardworking, holistic individuals that we would enjoy having a relationship with them as adults. This week we are going to look at how you as a parent can help your teenager develop psychologically well in a holistic manner that you can be able to say that they have a healthy picture of who they are and how they interact with everyone. And you as a parent holds the major key of helping them to get to this point. And even as we continue, remember to subscribe so that more people can find this helpful information. So, when we talk about psychological well-being, here we mean the way an individual or the way your teenager is able to view themselves and even view others in their environment. So they need to have healthy view of how they interact with themselves, how they interact with others, and it is you as a parent who comes in to help them have this healthy way of seeing who they are and how they are, and that they are capable human beings who can achieve a lot in this life and know who their identity is and how they can resolve their problems when they have challenges. And so mostly we can look at where the problems that these teenagers face as they start on. In terms of their psychological well-being, the challenges that these teenagers have includes whereby they struggle with their self-identity. This is a time where they're asking so many questions about who they are, where they come from. So where there is a mom and dad, those questions are easily answered for them because they are there and they will ask about their extended family. But sometimes a challenge comes in where it is only the mother or the father alone who is there, and we are having a hard time explaining to them where this other partner is or who they are. So that can cause a lot of problems with this teenager if they really do not know their roots and they're trying to understand who they are. So having a conversation around it, especially if they do not know the other parent, would help. Even if you do not want to give out excess details about who they are, just having that conversation and limiting and not even lying to them about it or confusing them about it will help in that process of their identity. And then they have high anxiety from academic pressures and social pressures. These can affect how they view themselves and eventually how they view others around them. And there's also fear of failure or rejection. This thing is so much in them. And even for us as parents at home, sometimes we are really quick to correct because we are so busy, and the likely thing we are likely to do in this process is just to correct mostly. And for a teenager, most of the time they receive this correction, constant correction, and telling them they need to be better and telling them that they are changing. All this causes them to feel a lot of stress, and it changes how they view themselves because they feel that they are not enough even for their parents. There's also the feeling that they are not understood or they are misunderstood. And that is a common feeling that most teenagers have. And a remedy for this, of which we're going to look at as we go along, is because the parent is not really there to spend ample time with them so that they can finally understand them. And most of the time it's because we are so that the only time we have is very limited, and because it's limited we do not have the patience or even have the time, and sometimes it's understandable. We do not even have the time to sit down and listen to their view before we give advice. But because we are pressed for time, what we end up doing is just to advise before they even finish what they are saying, and eventually that is how they feel misunderstood, and which eventually affect their psychological well-being because now they have a view, another view of themselves that can come up because I am not worthy, that's why I'm not being listened to, I am not valued. You will be surprised the various attitudes that eventually teenagers speak about themselves because of how we relate with them as parents. And now that we've looked at the problem that comes about, how do we as parents contribute? Although I've already alluded to it as we were going along. And sometimes we compare these teenagers to their siblings, to their relatives, or even their peers out there. And that really is a hurtful thing for these young guys when we tend to compare them with others. And yet we forget that every individual is different, and even the challenges they're having, they are different, and we have challenges at different times of our lives. Maybe that sibling that you're comparing them with, maybe they are younger, or maybe the challenge they will have will come later, or maybe their challenge is all different. But because we as parents, we have different categories of the things that we call sin or problematic behavior, we tend to categorize and consider these as far worse than the other. And I'm not saying some behaviors can be wanting, but that aspect of comparing so much usually distorts how your teenager view themselves and their holistic well-being. Another aspect is over controlling choices. We really, when we control every decision of our teenagers, they tend to believe that I am not capable, I am not responsible enough, I am not. So they tend up having this negative image or self-view about themselves, because we are trying to control everything, that I am not even able to make a choice of the kind of friends I will have, and even the hobbies we want to pick for them, and their career path, we are there just wanting to be in charge of everything that they are doing and the decisions they make, and that really affects their psychological well-being. And that's why some of them really struggle with who they are and with their self image and how they define themselves. And also we have another point here of dismissing their struggles as just teenage drama, and that is so common in our society at the moment, whereby our teenagers struggling, but they're saying, it's just a season, it will pass. And yes, to some extent it's true, but that doesn't mean for you as a parent we ignore or we downplay that they are really struggling. And when I meet them in the counseling room, really it is a weighty issue for them, as simple as it may be. Maybe it's their grade, maybe it's their friends, maybe it's how they see themselves. It is as heavy as the way the issues you have that you're struggling with. And so that aspect of it really causes them to have a negative image or view of themselves. And then lastly is criticizing more than affirming. And I know as parents we really mean well, and even as we criticize them, as we see the negative that they are doing, we really want them to change because we love them. And I understand that, but this teenager, most of the time, they do not understand it or pick it that way. For them, they pick that my parent doesn't love me, or they do not think I am enough. That's why they keep criticizing me and correcting me all the time. But yet we know that we need mostly to affirm them. The more we affirm, the more we notice what they are doing right, the more we appreciate even the little effort that they are making, the more they are likely to repeat this positive behavior. And I am not saying that you do not correct some of the challenges they are having. Yes, there is room for correction, there is room for guiding them and having that conversation around it, but my plea is for us to find ways of affirming them most of the time, and just sharing positive things so that they can feel that they can have the confidence and feel that I can do it, I can live this life, I can overcome the challenges that I have. But when we keep correcting, that tends them, instead it has the opposite effect of what we really want them to experience. And so here, what now can we do as a parent? How can you help in this situation? And I think I've already mentioned a few things here and there, but one of them would be to encourage autonomy. This is whereby we allow them to make decisions in some areas, but we come in and guide them. If it is the decision of a friend, instead of coming and tell them, do not hang out with so and so, chances are high they are likely to hang out with them all the more. You can come in and say, what are the characteristics of a good friend, of a bad friend, quote unquote bad friend, or someone who will influence you negatively? What are those characteristics? Do you think, and how are your friends? Do they have all these characteristics? Having a discussion and then guiding them, and then entrusting them and telling them, I would like you now to make that decision as you go along. I am guiding, but my preference would be to look for people who are like 1, 2, 3, 4, without directly saying, this is the person I do not want you to hang out with. Yes, parents, I know there are moments we will actually want to do just that. Just tell them directly that please don't hang out with this friend, but let it be on rare occasions, because now they are at a stage. If they are in their teenagehood, they are at a stage where they need to know how to make these decisions, so that when you're not there with them in college or later in life, now that you're not there to pick specific individuals and specific people they should not hang out with, they'll be able to now go back and use the list or how you've been telling them of how to choose a good friend, and then they'll be able to choose that friend in future, and they'll feel empowered and courageous. Because one thing that causes anxiety for these young guys as they grow older, because my parent has been making all these decisions for me, then I know I fear going outside and making them, because they have been doing most of the things or almost everything for me. So the second one is to celebrate effort and progress and not just the results. You know, as they do the exam and they get the grade, sometimes they will not perform so well, but you can encourage them and see, especially if you've seen they have really tried and they have tried to study and you've seen the struggle, even at home you've seen that they are trying. Please, let's celebrate that effort and that they are progressing, even though the result is not that good, because we don't want to lay more emphasis on the result more than the process. And we all know the process is really, really important, so that we do not have children or teenagers with psychological well-being that is not okay, or their view of themselves and generally, because they just look at the result and not the process. You know, even in life, that is how they are going to categorize and view everything. Is this result good or bad? If it is bad, I am a failure. Yet we have seen maybe it is bad because of certain factors outside their control, but the process was worth celebrating. The third aspect will be you create a safe and non-judgmental space where they can talk to us. Because what we see most of the time is that our teenagers really fear talking to us because they feel that they will be judged, or we will cause for them, and we will criticize them, or we will punish them. I've even heard that. But then we need to find a way of creating a safe and non-judgmental place. Even when they share something that we do not like, find a way of not overreacting, you know, and then coming back and not giving consequences immediately before having a discussion around it, so that they feel even these consequences is for my benefit and not because I have done just this wrong thing. It needs to be a process, as opposed to earlier years where it was all about they do something wrong, consequences. But now their mind has expanded, their brain has really expanded, and they're able to have this serious discussion with them, and you need to allow to do that. Then you need to model resilience by sharing that you also went through setbacks and challenges. They need to know that you as a parent also struggled in one way or another. So share the failures, you know, share the setbacks that you had, you know, and the sad moments, disappointing moments. It's not really in detail, so that now they end up being stressed, but just in a way that will show them that even if and when I fail, that my parent also failed and they were able to rise up and continue on. And that will be more encouraging than just us always correcting them and then believing that my parent never failed, you know, and the likes of that. And the more you share the challenges that you're having, the more you are likely to connect with them. And lastly, you need to support and teach them how to have a healthy self-image, you know, and even how the way they talk to themselves and how they view themselves. So you need to pick, you need to be there. That's why we need to be present parents, and pick when they make comments that are not so kind to themselves, and being able to address them as you go along. And so mostly that is generally how you're going to help your teenager to have a healthy psychological well-being, which involves how they view themselves. And if they have a healthy view of themselves, they'll also have a healthy view of everyone around them. And so that is it for today. And I'd like to urge us, if you really want to go into details of understanding your teenager, I have written a book that is called What's Going On in Your Teenager's Head, and it will give you details of the changes that are going on in your teenager's brain, the scientific bit. Then now we go step by step into looking at the challenge you're having and how you can resolve it and why it comes along and how you can help to understand your teenager. So you can get the book at the Nuria bookshop at Bazaar Center, and I have linked it in the bio, or even on Amazon at Paperback copy. So I will see you next week when we will be looking at how you as a parent, you can help your teenager to develop, to have healthy social well-being. That is it for now. Bye.